Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Got a stacked episode today on transfers and other stories which I want to debate and give my thoughts on. So let's get right into it. Firstly with transfers, because that's what everyone is so obsessed with at the moment. Marc Guehi apparently on an 18-month loan deal to Swansea is going to happen pretty soon. That's what Sam Wallace in the Telegraph is reporting. Really good move, not only for Guehi but for the club as well. I think it's such a stacked area of the pitch, defender. And Guehi, got minutes earlier in the year in the League Cup against Grimsby and Manchester United, where he really impressed and looked good and composed. But I think this is a great move. Fikayo Tomori is probably the best example recently you can give of a defender going away to Brighton on loan in the Championship and also to Derby. Really helped his development. And then came back and looks brilliant for Chelsea. So I think for Guehi, brilliant move. I really hope it works well. And I hope for his sake as well. Swansea currently in the playoff places in the Championship. So I hope they could potentially get in the playoffs. Guehi could contribute to that. And then potentially they could be in the Premier League. And Guehi could be playing Premier League football for them. So all round, I think it's a good move whatever happens. So I really hope that one gets confirmed soon. Another one, probably the biggest news story that came out last night regarding transfers was Dembele apparently agreeing personal terms with Chelsea. This is from Duncan Castle's transfer podcast. Saw it from Simon Phillips on Twitter. He's a great person to follow regarding Chelsea transfers. Sort of covers everything and gives his thoughts on it. So definitely go and follow him. But we spoke about Werner last week. And I really doubted whether Chelsea would be able to get one of their big striker targets over the line. If they can get Dembele, it hasn't been confirmed by all the sources I usually trust. This is only one place, but it would be massive. It really would. A massive coup for Chelsea. Convincing Dembele to move away from guaranteed football to come to Chelsea where he could be second choice. I know he could potentially play along a front three, but I think overall, it's a massive statement from Chelsea if this is true. And interesting because Werner was the other target, but I do know Chelsea really want to go in for a forward. I think Dembele would be a brilliant signing. But let's get into some of the main stories. And it was about Roman Abramovich, the financial loss for Chelsea in 2019. Those results got released. And Liam Toomey from The Athletic did a really good article, really in-depth article on this and what it means for Chelsea. And basically, his article talks about why Abramovich's 247 million investment and huge wage bill shows Chelsea are not sustainable without Champions League football. Chelsea's latest financial results announced on their website in the final hours before 2019 ticked into 2020 went beyond merely confirming a lean year at Stamford Bridge. They underlined that the club are not sustainable at the elite level without the benefits of regular Champions League participation. There was heavy spending in 2018-19 to acquire club record signing Kepa, Jorginho and Christian Pulisic, but the accounts revealed that Abramovich poured in a staggering 247 million of his own personal wealth to enable them to do so via his holding company, HUDSON Limited. I think the biggest thing for me about this is, number one, there's that sort of positive sign that Roman is still very much invested in Chelsea. We've heard so much about him potentially selling the club, not being interested, having that distance. I remember talking about it on an episode recently. This is a positive in a sense, but of course the downside of this is the report that Chelsea need Champions League football, and it sort of puts pressure on the rest of the season. And it sort of shows you, Chelsea consistently have been a Champions League club for a long time now, but we have had a few dips in there as well. So when you do have those dips, I'm no financial expert, but as this article demonstrates and articulates very well, when you do have that one dip, it really does affect Chelsea. It really does, and Chelsea need Champions League football. Having said that, you can see it with clubs like Liverpool recently and Arsenal especially could be going into a fourth year in the Europa League. So then, of course, their wage budget and structure changes because of that, rather than it just being one sudden drop out of the Champions League. But I think it shows you that even with Lampard having, in some people's eyes, a free season, Chelsea do need European elite football. They do. They need to get into the Champions League, which they are in a good position to do at the moment, but probably links in with transfers and Chelsea needing to spend in this window to bring in players to try and secure that Champions League football for next year. I also think Roman's interest, the Yokohama shirt sponsorship, which is up very soon, and who's going to replace them? Could Yokohama extend their deal? That's going to be something we're going to have to wait for. Bloated wage bill. They talk about Giroud, Marcos Alonso, Barkley cited as sort of players with a lot of wages, and you look at all three of those players, not players that are first teamers, not players that get regular minutes under Frank Lampard, and all players I could see exiting very soon. So maybe that will help the wage bill once they leave. And as well the stadium. The stadium has been talked about for a long time, that redevelopment at Stamford Bridge that got put on hold. Chelsea haven't shown any signs of restarting that project. I think recently they came out and said there was no plans anyway. So that's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be something that maybe the club have to decide on. To stop sort of that fear of if Chelsea drop out the Champions League, maybe creating that stadium and going back into that project with Roman putting his money behind it could stop this. I'm not sure. I think that's going to be the intriguing thing, and I think a big worry and maybe concern for the club. But I think an interesting thing is, will that stadium redevelopment come back into the fore in the coming years? That's going to be something we're going to have to wait and see. But I think this follows on very nicely, these reports, because these reports did also talk about Antonio Conte and his payoff, 26.6 million payoff. The accounts reveal that Chelsea's sacking of Antonio Conte did cost the club, and this is from The Guardian and Jacob Steinberg. I think this is an interesting thing as well in losing Conte, and some of the points that have been made is that even though that is a very extortionate fee for a manager, and Chelsea have been paying a lot in sacking managers in recent years because we do it quite often, I think it shows you that that's still cheaper than sacking a whole squad, isn't it? So it still is financially better, of course, than sacking all of your players. But still, it's a lot of money. And I just want to talk about Conte because I think a lot has been discussed about Conte and in relation to Sarri and all of that sort of situation. And I was having this conversation recently with someone about Conte and his time at Chelsea and sort of reflecting on it. Of course, the first season with Conte was glorious, but I can't take away that second season, which was pretty miserable by all standards, because the way Chelsea ended that year, almost relegation form from January to about March, and the way Conte acted, the way he almost threw a strop because he didn't get the players he wanted. In my opinion, in my time supporting Chelsea, he oversaw the worst away performance. And, you know, if you ask a lot of people, what is Chelsea's worst away performance that he had recently? Most people will instantly cite 6-0. No, the year before, the 1-0, which was just absolute dire. The fact that Conte, for all of January, was moaning that he didn't get a signing in a striker position. He wanted a striker, was desperate for a striker. We brought in Giroud, and then he goes up to the Etihad and doesn't play a striker, leaves both of them on the bench. And I've never seen such a heartless Chelsea performance, where it was basically a training session. Chelsea had no intention to attack that day, and he was about keeping the score down. And it was a training session. It was just a breeze in the park for Manchester City. He didn't even play that well that day, but I think as well, losing to Tottenham and sort of the dire way that league season panned out, you know, even I've seen a lot of people complain about Chelsea not backing managers recently, but I think what Maurizio Sarri proved the year later was that squad was more than capable of getting into the Champions League places. It really was. And I think Conte did such a terrible job in that second year of Chelsea not retaining their Champions League place, which I think has cost the club in recent years. So there's all of that. And I think, you know, maybe it's a lesson for Chelsea of going forward, of managers and picking the right manager and picking the right coach, and, you know, really understanding who they are and are they the right fit for the club? Are they going to cause you issues in the coming years? Of course, every club has to sack managers. You know, it's not a rarity for Chelsea, but I think it's something they're going to have to look for going forward, because as with these accounts, it's going to affect your budget if you keep on having to sack managers by falling out of them, short-term thinking over long-term thinking. And let's hope that can be something that Chelsea can change going forward. But let me know your opinions on Conte in the comments below. The last story I want to talk about is Ruben Loftus-Cheek. The Athletic Simon Johnson did an article about his recovery, his recuperation. Sources have told The Athletic that despite Loftus-Cheek posting videos on social media last month of him training, a first-team appearance isn't imminent. Indeed, it has been suggested he might not be seen until the latter part of the season. This has been an injury that's been, and his return has been put back over and over again. I remember Simon Johnson reporting, I think it was after the Valencia defeat in September, that it was going to be like 6 weeks till Ruben came back. And it's just gone back, you know, and back his return. And, you know, I know there's been that sort of comparison to HUDSON-ODOI having a similar injury and coming back faster. It really is a deep dive into the rehab of Loftus-Cheek, getting him back to full fitness. And it's such a shame, you know, other than maybe Rudiger, Loftus-Cheek is probably my favourite player within Chelsea's squad. I was so happy to see him break in under Sarri. And with the exception of Hazard, I think Loftus-Cheek was one of Chelsea's best performers. He was so amazing at the back end of last season, and really once Ruben came into that central midfield position, started in games, especially with Kante, Jorginho, that midfield works so well. And it's just such a shame, and so much has changed at Chelsea, hasn't it? Mateo Kovacic has been Chelsea's best player this year, so he takes up one of those spots. Mason Mount now as well, and sort of seeing how Lampard will play and what formation he's going to play and how Ruben would fit into that. I definitely think if you're looking at that midfield three, maybe Ruben would be competing with Mason Mount, but Mount has played on the left recently as well, so he has that versatility to do that, and Ruben definitely is that box-to-box midfielder. But I generally think Ruben could be a gem at Chelsea. I really do. I think he is one of those players that has got absolutely the capability to be Chelsea's best midfielder, and I really do hope that even though this injury has taken its toll on the club of being patient, and he's had setbacks, and I'm sure it's been very difficult, and it's going to take him time, like Callum has, to get back to his full fitness and his best, I still think Ruben can be an astonishing player for Chelsea. I think that short period under Sarri was that when he's breaking in, he started scoring goals, which is something Chelsea have needed for so long. He was giving Chelsea something we haven't had since Lampard departed, a goal-scoring midfielder. And my hope is he can get back to his full fitness. Chelsea are going to be really strong in that area. And I really hope Lampard can get the best out of Ruben. It's going to be intriguing to see how this affects all the other midfielders, because it is the most competitive part of the pitch and probably the most important part of the pitch. And getting that balance right was something Sarri struggled with. And I think Lampard has struggled with a bit of trying to get all the elements in there that make the best midfield. I think it's that balance that's going to be really important for Chelsea moving forward. What will be the midfield trio? And I'm sure Ruben's really hoping that once he gets back into that, he can compete for that position and take that position back. But it's going to be interesting how long it's going to take. Let me know your thoughts on Ruben's recovery in the comments below. Do you think he can get back to his best at Chelsea when he returns? So that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Let me know your thoughts on everything I discussed in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.